and then a phone call comes in to a police station in Denmark or Ireland or northern Germany. Someone has been out cutting peat for fuel and has uncovered a body with skin still on it and a face still on it, and they are certain they've stumbled onto a recent murder. The detectives come, and sometimes what they find turns out to be 2,000 years old. Not a skeleton, a face, with skin and stubble and closed eyes, as if the person had only just fallen asleep. These are the bog bodies of Northern Europe. There are many hundreds that we know of, scattered across Denmark, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, and Britain. Some are little more than bones. A few are so complete that the people who found them were sure of murder. Tonight, I'd like to sit with you and think about who they were and why the ground held onto them so tenderly, and the questions we still can't answer. To understand the bodies, you have to understand the bog itself. So, let's start there, gently. A peat bog is built from moss, sphagnum moss mostly, a soft, spongy plant that grows in wet ground and never quite finishes rotting. As the years pass, the moss piles up, layer upon layer, the old growth pressing down beneath the new. Over centuries, this becomes peat, a thick, dark, waterlogged mat of half-decayed plants, sometimes meters deep. People have cut it and dried it and burned it on their fires for a very long time. Now, most places on Earth are busy with decay. When something dies, bacteria get to work, and in a season or two there's little left but bone. A bog is different. The water is cold. It's strangely acidic, almost like a weak vinegar, and down in the peat there's almost no oxygen at all. Bacteria, the little engines of rotting, can't get going in conditions like that, so the usual process stops. Something else happens instead. The acids in the bog soak into the skin and tan it, the way a tanner once turned a raw hide into leather. The skin darkens and hardens and holds its shape. Hair stays, nails stay. Even the fine creases of the fingertips stay. There is one odd twist, though. The same acid that saves the skin tends to dissolve the bones, drawing the calcium out of them. So a bog body can be the reverse of what you'd expect. The soft parts last, while the hard parts soften and sometimes vanish. A face, perfectly kept. Beneath it, bones gone to jelly. And then the bog seals it all away. More moss grows over the top. More peat builds up. The body sinks into the cold and the dark, sealed off from the air, and the world above moves on for 1,000 years, or 2 or 3. Empires rise and fall. The body waits. Because so much survives, a bog body can tell you things that ordinary old bones never could. Take the Clonycavan man, found in 2003 in a bog in County Meath in Ireland. He died in the Iron Age, more than 2,000 years ago. He was a young man and not a tall one, and the thing people remember about him is his hair. It had been gathered up and held in place with a kind of gel, a mixture of plant oil and pine resin. When the resin was studied, it turned out to have come from pine trees that grew far to the south, in what is now France or Spain. A little pot of styling product carried hundreds of miles along the trade routes of the ancient world, worn by a man whose name we will never learn. Perhaps it made him look taller. Perhaps it marked him out as someone of importance. He did not die gently either. His head had been struck several times, and then his body was laid in the bog. He's not alone in that. Take the Tolland man, found in 1950 near Silkeborg in Jutland in Denmark, who died somewhere around 400 BC. He has one of the most peaceful faces ever to come out of the ground. Eyes shut, a little cap of skin and leather on his head. looking as though he had only fallen asleep. And here is a detail I find hard to forget. They were able to look inside his stomach. There, preserved across all those centuries, was his last meal, a porridge or gruel of seeds and grains. From the way digestion works, they could even estimate that he'd eaten it roughly 12 hours before he died. A man sat down 2,000 years ago and had a bowl of something, and we know what was in it. But around his neck was a braided leather rope. He had been hanged, and yet his body had been laid down with some care, his eyes and mouth gently closed. Many of the bog people met violent ends. A rope, a blow, a cut throat, bound hands, and yet a good number of them seem to have been settled into the water with that same kind of care, placed rather than flung. The contrast is part of what makes them so haunting and so hard to read. Along with the bodies, the bog keeps the small things, clothing where it survives, wool and leather because those resist the acid too, caps and capes, sometimes a pin or a comb, ordinary objects from a person's ordinary morning kept long after the person who owned them was forgotten by every living soul. And here is the part where we have to be honest, because the truth is we don't really know why they're there. It's tempting to reach for one tidy explanation. But the bog bodies don't come from a single time or a single people. They stretch across thousands of years, some far older than the Iron Age, some as recent as the Second World War, when soldiers died in the wetlands of the East, and the peat closed over them too. Whatever was going on, it wasn't one custom held by one group. The reasons may well have changed from age to age and place to place. Still, for the Iron Age bodies of Denmark and northern Germany, the cluster of clues points somewhere. The careful placing, the violent but precise manner of death, the way several of them, like the Tolland man and the Elling woman, turn up in the same bogs over the years, as if certain watery places were used again and again for the same purpose. Many archaeologists think these were sacrifices, offerings perhaps to gods or to the spirits people believed lived in the wet ground, maybe tied to the seasons, to good harvests, to the things that kept a community alive through a hard northern winter. But, and this matters, that's an interpretation, not a proven fact. There are other possibilities, and good scholars hold them side by side. Some of these people may have been executed as criminals or as captives, or punished for breaking the rules of their community. From the bog alone, a sacrifice and an execution can look very much the same. A death by human hands, a body put into the marsh. With the Tolland man, the experts are careful to say there isn't enough evidence to tell which it was. And a few bog bodies may be nothing so dramatic at all. People did drown in bogs. A traveller in the dark, a missed step, a patch of ground that looked solid and wasn't. So we're left with a set of clues and no confession. We have the food in the stomach, the rope around the neck, the resin in the hair, the gentle closing of the eyes. We can say what was done. We can rarely say why or by whom, or whether the man in the bog went there in terror or in some belief we can no longer reach. Today, the bog people live in museums. The Tolland man rests at a museum in Silkeborg in Denmark, not far from where he was found. Others are kept in Ireland, in Germany, in the Netherlands and Britain. Some out where the public can see them, some held in cool, dark, climate-controlled rooms, looked after as carefully as any treasure in any vault. The looking after is its own quiet story. When the Tolland man came out of the ground in 1950, The science of preserving such a body hardly existed yet. Conservators managed to save only his head, soaking it slowly over many months in a series of baths that kept the skin from shrinking away. The rest of him could not be kept. So the head you can see today sits on a carefully reconstructed body, a gentle act of repair, so that a stranger from the Iron Age might be met whole and not in pieces. And there are people who wonder whether he should be on view at all, whether someone who once lived and ate and slept should lie in a glass case for others to study. It's a fair thing to turn over in your mind, slowly, late at night. There's no neat answer, only the care that's taken and the quiet that's kept around them. Out where they were found, very little has changed. The rain still falls on the moss, the water still sits dark and still, and the peat goes on building slowly, layer over layer, the way it has for 10,000 years, holding on to whatever it is given, in no hurry at all to give it back.